I used to blame my behaviors on my kids. I would say that I was tired, I was grouchy, I was irritable, I would rage because of my kids. And then I resented my husband in the process, which just led to this really icky cycle that I was stuck in. And it wasn't until I had this huge mindset shift, aha moment, that my life actually got easier. I was able to communicate what was going on for me, and I felt free. So if you find yourself in this cycle of blame, feeling frustrated, resenting your spouse, you're going to absolutely love today's episode. Welcome back to season 2 of the Slowish Parenting Podcast. This is a place for you to find hope. I want you to have hope that you can become the happiest version of yourself through motherhood. If you're a cycle breaker, you also don't like following the rules of parenting, and you're ready to awaken your innate design as a mother, then you are in the right place. Alrighty, let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to another episode. Today, I'm going to be sharing my entire story of victimhood, how I came to the understanding of it, really the ins and outs of this time of my life. And I'm going to tell you right now, I still see this pattern coming up in ways that I've never seen before as I've gained more capacity. And so I'm still working through this in real time, but I've found so much freedom, understanding, empathy, compassion, not only for myself, but for everybody involved in every situation, whether it's my husband or people in the past who have wronged me, my parents, my children. And it's crazy to me how one singular pattern can find itself in every single area of your life. And so I know for myself, hearing stories has been so powerful because often we're in our own snow globe. This is my analogy I use all the time, and it's just shook up. And I remember my mentor, one of the first times we worked together, she had a snow globe and she's like, let me show you what you're seeing. And it's like, she's shaking it and she keeps shaking it and she's not stopping. And the snow globe is just, it's going all over the place. Maybe I should grab a snow globe for here. But it was just going all over the place. And I was like, gosh, yeah, I can't see. I can't see what the thing in the middle is. I can't tell if it's a character. Is it a tree? Like, is it Santa? Like, what is it in the middle? And then she's like, now watch it settle. And so she set it next to her, and I just watched the snow globe settle. And all of a sudden, I could see clearly that it was this cute little deer with a Christmas tree right in the center. And she could see my life in that way, and I couldn't. And so sometimes it's hearing someone else's story, it's having someone else enlighten us, open our eyes, shift our mindset into something that's a little bit more expansive. And so this episode is going to be a little bit heavier. It's going to be something that's really going to have you thinking. And at the end, I'm going to share some of the journaling prompts that have helped me to start working through this mindset, because this is what was keeping me stuck. This is what was keeping my kids stuck. This is what was keeping our entire family in just this one place. It felt like I couldn't get out of rage. I couldn't get what I needed from my husband, and I also couldn't get my kids to do the things, and we'll get to all the things in today's episode, but getting them to do the things that I needed or wanted them to do. The things that I felt like were quote unquote normal. If you can't see me on video, if you're on the podcast, I'm doing air quotes here, because I think most of us moms, or I can't even say I know that most of us moms are battling with either victimhood, martyrdom, or maybe even being the good mom complex, which is something I really want to talk about. I'm thinking about doing it in next week's podcast. So if you're interested in either the kind of martyr mentality, or you're interested in hearing about the good mom complex, comment which one you would prefer below, because that'll help me to decide for next week. So anyway, why don't you grab something warm to drink, and let's get into today's episode. So the first area I want to start, so you guys always know I've got my notes here because I will get off track. So if you see me glancing down, that's what I'm doing. But I want to start with my story of victimhood as a child. So I was I think it was in fourth grade when it was in third grade when I had gone to school. My mom had homeschooled me prior to this, and I'd gone to school and I had a really hard time making friends. In fourth grade, another new girl had come to the school. It was a very small Catholic school, and she was new, and so I felt really bad for her because I knew what it felt like to be new. And so I was really drawn and attracted to her. And I can just remember this feeling of like, I really wanted to be her friend because I never wanted her or somebody else who was new to feel like I had felt. And so I kind of always did that going through school. I would always seek the new girl out because I knew that feeling. So her and I had become really good friends, and I definitely wanted to hang out. I wanted to get together, I wanted to, all the things. And so did she. And so I can't remember the exact timeline of things, but she had invited me to something, and my mom told me that I couldn't go. And so this girl got upset with me, and instead of telling me that, right, instead of telling me, it's really upsetting that we can't go to this movie together, she just smacked me in the face. And I was black and blue, my whole half my face here. And I mean, I think she punched me. I can't remember. I didn't like pass out, but I was not with it. I had to go to the nurse and everything, obviously. And so I had a huge mark on this side, and that was the start of bullying for me. And I really never consciously thought to myself like, oh, like I want to be bullied, or like I am being bullied, but I just knew that like the way this girl was treating me was not right. But what's interesting is not only did I then get bullied, but then I would like try to make things right with her. And I would put myself in more situations where she would end up pulling my hair, just saying really not kind things. And I kept going back for more. And looking back in my story, right after this had happened, right after I had been, smacked in the face, and all the teachers, all the faculty, all the staff, all my classmates, my mom, my dad, everybody was showing me the utmost care, love, affection, support. I was heard, I was seen, I was loved, I was, given the affection that I was desperately needing at that time. My parents were good parents. I want to say that publicly. My parents did the best they could with the resources that they had. But every child, even the girls that look good, were you the good girl? Here's another one we could go down, the good girl complex, right? I think that growing up that way, I was always the good girl. So it just didn't seem like I had things going on, but I internalized them to be the good girl, right? I internalized it all. Like I said, that's a story for another day. So I end up going through this same cycle of going to a new school. I would become friends with somebody who had this similar demeanor, this I want to say just like kind of rough, I would even say like victim-y home situation, that kind of a mentality, that kind of a response and reaction. I would always go after the friend whose mom and dad were divorced, whose, they were really struggling, they were angry with their parents. I was always attracted to those kinds of friends. And so I found myself in, after this point, probably 5 to 6 situations that were not okay, that I would never want my children to experience. And, I had a couple of comments on the last podcast episode that I did, how people were saying that these bullies have needs too, that you have to be careful, basically blaming yourself and saying, oh, it's all the victim's fault. And by no means is that what I'm saying, by any means, because I don't think that we are ever consciously or intentionally even making ourselves a victim. But see, what happens is we make ourselves as a victim. We victimize ourselves. And what do we get? We get the very need that we don't know how to communicate. So this looks like, for me, I didn't know how to communicate that I needed more, like, probably physical touch, affection. I needed, support or love. I needed to be seen, or I needed to be heard. My brother was like the star, basketball, baseball player. And so he took up a lot of my parents' attention. So I was probably really wanting to be seen and heard as well. And so instead of communicating these things, which I did not know how to do, in the most icky, gross, not great way, I got that need met by simply showing up in front of people who were going to hurt me, who were going to be mean to me. And then you know what would happen? I had the school, the staff, other friends. I had my parents, all there supporting, loving, caring for me. And I didn't realize this until probably a year and a half ago. I mean, gosh, I had even gone through 9 years of therapy. Like, I just assumed that I can't even really know. I believed that it happened for a reason. Like, I always knew there was a reason, but I never thought to myself like I was creating it or manifesting it. And so, again, I want to go back to just kind of clarifying here. These bullies also have needs, right? I was going to the people who didn't have a intact family unit. I was going to girls who were struggling, who were having a really hard time. So they had clear needs, right? They had clear needs to be seen, heard, to be loved, cared for, supported, whatever need they had. And I was meeting their need too. And so it was a two-way street. I was meeting their need and they were meeting mine. And so when we look at children, we look at their behaviors, right? This is the lens that I am seeing a child's behavior through, is their need. What are they needing in this moment that they're trying to communicate? I talk all about feelings and needs and how this relates to children in Unscripted. You can still get season 1 of Unscripted. I'll leave the link below. But yeah, you look at needs, you look at what your needs are as a mother. And all of a sudden you start realizing, gosh, I'm victimizing myself. Okay, so I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me kind of move into married life. So I got married, met my husband, and my husband is the most like physical touch, affectionate, outwardly affectionate, doesn't care who knows, just very loving and kind, and just, everything that you could imagine. We met at 19, and so this met every single one of my needs. And for the first time, I was getting the actual physical need met versus having to do it in a really icky way to get the need met. So, of course, honeymoon phase wears off. We had been married about probably 5 years at this point. And we got pregnant after 8 months with our daughter. And looking back, I start seeing the victimization pattern coming up again. I see myself victimizing myself because of the year 2020. I don't want to say it on here because I don't want to, get myself banned. But yeah, it just, there was that. My oldest was hospitalized, NICU, right after birth, born 5 weeks early. I was under incredible stress, and this all led to about 2 weeks after we got home from the NICU, going into the pediatrician's office, and my husband, honestly, we're both tired, sleep deprived. We've been in the NICU, really high stress situations, and I just kind of go after him and attack him, and then play it on myself. And then move forward, I start blaming my daughter for the fact that I'm tired and I'm miserable, and without saying it, I'm unhappy. And I'm blaming it on the fact that she was in the NICU. I'm blaming it on the fact that she doesn't sleep at night. I'm blaming it on the fact that, she's a small baby, so she has to eat all the time, and she has acid reflux, and like the symptoms go on and on and on. And so I'm blaming and I'm projecting, right? And again, I didn't do this consciously. I want to say it in this way, like I was victimizing myself at the expense of my daughter, because it kind of seemed like what everybody did, oh, the baby's not sleeping at night. Oh, woe is me, honestly. And so I did not get sleep with her until 7 months, 8 months, when I had decided to sleep train. It was awful. I was up all night long, and this child would not sleep. And do you want to know what I would do after every single night? After every night I was up all night, I never asked my husband. A couple of times, a handful, I may have asked him, like, hey, can you come help? And he definitely would come and say, hey, can I relieve you? And I'd be like, oh, yes, you can relieve me. Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. I'm just going to sleep for a couple hours, like doing that whole thing. And then I would wake up in the next morning, complain about how tired I was, complain about how she didn't sleep, complain how she cried for 4 hours, complain that I laid her down and she woke right back up. And what's interesting is then he would give me the care, love, and affection that he wasn't giving me on a daily basis, because we were tired and distracted, and, we'd been married for a little bit. That stuff kind of wears off as far as, like being that intentional about seeing each other 100% in that phase. If you're a first-time mom, this is something to kind of know and just kind of keep in the back of your mind. And the dynamic is shifting, and it's a lot to process and a lot to go through. So of course, you're going to do what you need to do, because it's survival at that point, to get your need met. And for me, that was, affection, love, care, support, seen and heard. And not all in one moment, kind of, varied through different moments. And this pattern just continued and only intensified with my second. My second was NICU baby. Wow, does that victim story just ring loud? Even if you guys probably go back to old podcast episodes, you can just hear the victimization in that. And then fast forward, I don't get any sleep with my second daughter. And guess what I could do? Complain in the morning to my husband. And then what do I get? Love, care, and affection. And so this pattern just kept going until one day I was opened to this idea that I was playing the victim. My children were the villains, and my husband was the hero in our family story. And I knew that this was not the way I wanted things to be. I did not want our family to be this way. I wanted to be in harmony and in unity. I wanted to enjoy each other with connection and love. And I wanted to just be happy, right? And so I realized that if I was going to hang on to the victimization, if I was going to use this as my way to get my needs met, I was going to stay stuck in this pattern forever. And I did not want that. And so what came from this was I had already learned, this realization came about a year ago, maybe a little longer. But I had already been in the understanding of nonviolent communication, but I hadn't put the pieces together between victimization and needs and how that played a role for me and how that came up in motherhood. And I end up realizing that these needs that were primal, that were like, I needed them. I wasn't going to survive without them. And I was doing everything and anything I could to get them met. Like I said, in the most icky, gross way. And so I wish, like, go back, tell my younger self something. I wish I could have told her that there are some signs that I was stuck in victimization, blaming. If I am blaming my child, if I'm blaming my husband, I'm trying to put myself in a victim role. Absolutely. If I don't, if I'm the victim, if I am blaming someone else, if I don't like take this on, I don't have to feel my feelings. My feelings aren't my responsibility. They're somebody else's. So I can kind of take the weight off myself because I don't have enough capacity to even look at that, right? Sorry about that very abrupt intermission. My kids, for those of you who don't know, they watch a movie one day a week and they don't get movies outside of that. I don't have a lot of help. I don't have a babysitter. I don't have a grandma to watch my kids all the time. We get an occasional, like once a month usually, visit with grandma for a couple hours. And so yeah, I don't have like this huge robust village right now, and so we just make do with what we've got. So anyway, let's get back to what we were talking about, which was kind of the symptoms of, am I victimizing myself? We talked about blame. We talked about not wanting to be responsible for our own feelings. This feeling of like, I have no choice, feeling like we're trapped, feeling like we're stuck, like there's no way out. And I know in those nights, those just, the 3-4 hour long crying sessions that did not stop, I definitely felt trapped and like there was no way out. I can remember telling myself like, this is never going to end. Like she's never going to sleep again. Like I'm so tired. I'm so burned out. I'm so worn out. I don't think I can keep doing this. Like I don't think I was meant for this, was a lot of what I told myself. The other thing is that we start to notice, like maybe you're going through this, or maybe you listen to last week's podcast episode and you're realizing I've never acknowledged my needs. I don't even think it's okay to acknowledge my needs, which halfly has to do with the martyr mentality. You know, there's that idea that we don't matter. Our needs don't matter. We don't matter. You know, everybody else is more important. And so these are kind of symptoms, so to speak, of being a victim. So we have these old patterns that are going to keep resurfacing. There's sometimes this fear of rejection, a resentment that is much safer than actually just communicating what we need. And I think when we look at fear of rejection, you know, that is one of the deepest, I think most wounding things that a child can experience is rejection from their parent. In the book, Hold On to Your Kids, grab it. This book right here. Gordon Newfield and Gabor Mate talk about this. They talk about rejection and how detrimental it is to a child's connection and attachment to their parent. And I see this wounding coming up for so many adults from their childhood. And so are you repeating this pattern out of feeling like your child is rejecting you? When my daughters were not sleeping at night, it felt like rejection. Felt like they don't love me. I'm not helpful. I'm not a good enough mother. I'm not doing enough, you know? And I think if I could go back and if I could tell myself something about rejection, it was that they're not rejecting you. They're not rejecting you. They're just having a really hard time. And we'll talk about kind of what I'm going to do differently this pregnancy. For those of you who don't know, I'm pregnant with baby number 3. So I'll share that towards the end, but can you dissect? Can you look back in your patterning? Something that we go through in the Calm Mama Blueprint. You know, can you go back? Can you see some patterning of how you've showed up? Can you see that rejection has been a theme? Could you see that you are afraid of showing up, asking for what you're needing? Maybe you were rejected every time you said your needs. Maybe you were told your needs did not matter. Maybe you were kind of brushed to the side. Whatever it may be, it would be safer to resent your husband, to be angry with him, to resent all the people around you than to actually communicate what's going on inside. That's huge. That's huge. Okay. So now we're going to be talking about making new patterns, right? Because we can stay stuck. And this is where I think therapy for me was hard and why I was in it for so long, because I just kept going over the same old patterns over and over and over again. And I wasn't getting anywhere. And so what actually needed to happen was I needed to start rewiring and creating new patterns so I could start to begin feeling safe, to find safety, so I could expand and have more capacity to keep diving even deeper. This is why I love Irene Lyon's work with the nervous system. The more capacity we have, actually more things come up. And a lot of people are like, what is going on? And I know for me, this was my experience with rage. At first, it was like, this is not working. The nervous system stuff isn't working. I'm getting only worse. I'm not getting better. It's actually that your nervous system has more capacity to handle all the fluctuations and the ups and downs and the anger and the frustration and the feelings, and actually acknowledging the past. Actually acknowledging what has happened to you, what you've gone through, your story. You're actually able to look at it. And so for the first time, you might be able to see something in a different light because you've had more capacity, because you've begun creating new patterns and rewiring your brain and showing your body that you can handle the ups and downs. You can handle the craziness that comes with this old pattern. You're able to actually hold on to it and handle it. And so because of that, as you begin to shift and change your mindset around victimization, you begin to change how you show up in it, you may actually notice that you're doing more victimization, which for me was crazy. I had realized that I was victimizing myself. And then I thought I started getting better. And then all of a sudden I noticed the millions of ways I was victimizing myself. And I was overwhelmed. And I was honestly scared by how deeply ingrained into my life this was. But now it comes up less frequently. And I also feel really confident in how I can handle it because I know that I've handled it before. I know the pattern that I've used to get out of it. And so it makes it a lot less scary to have to handle the uncertainty that you originally feel when you start realizing that you struggle with victimization. What I want for you is to feel empowered and to feel confident every time your victim mentality comes up. I want you to feel held. I want you to feel seen. And I want you to know that you can heal, that things can change. I want you to have hope because I'm a living person who's gotten through this, who's figured it out, who's like, okay, this doesn't have to be my story. I don't have to have this story. I don't have to accept it. I can change. It's possible. So I want to give you that, and I want to leave that here for you. I want you to know that the most important thing that you can do from this is effectively communicate. Effectively communicate with your spouse, with your parents, with your friends, with your child's teacher. Communicating what you are needing as a human is going to change everything. It's going to be a lot easier. So I would go back to the needs episode and listen to, how do I identify my needs? Like, why do my needs even matter? Go back to that. And then moving forward, let's learn how to communicate, which I will be teaching in my upcoming course that I have coming out. I'll be kind of dissecting all of the things that come with communication. If you're interested in that, you'll want to sign up for my Masterclass, which will be the 16th of November, I believe that's the date. But I will leave it in the description below. And if you're watching this way after the 16th, at this point, it'll just be a free download for you guys. You can download it for free and watch the Masterclass. But I want to remind you here that our story is so important. Knowing our story is important, but not staying stuck in our old stories, not victimizing ourselves by staying there, is the only way we can move forward. So one of the first questions I want you to ask yourself, and I learned this from Brene Brown, I can't remember which book it was, the story I'm telling myself, oof, the story I'm telling myself is usually not true. It's usually fabricated. It's usually really big and really dramatic, and it's not the truth. And so, what I would invite you to do is journal. What is the story I'm telling myself about my childhood? What is the story I'm telling myself about my kids? What is the story I'm telling myself about my husband? What is the story I'm telling myself about, this specific behavior my child's, expressing? And, what am I, telling myself? What's the story I'm telling myself about my child's grades? You get the concept. It's like, what is the story I'm telling myself is the very baseline for us to be able to understand what's going on deeper. It's kind of that first layer. That's why I love that question so much. And it's one that I ask so many of my clients. Like, what is the story you're telling yourself right now? Because there's so much information there. And sometimes we even just need to journal, reread it for ourselves, and then give it time. And then things kind of just start coming and flowing to you, which is a really cool experience. Okay, the second question I want you to ask yourself is, how is being a victim to my child's behavior serving me? And so in my case, my victimization of my child's sleep, it was serving me in that my husband would see me, he would hear me, he would love me, give me affection and care without me asking for it. And so even though it was a really icky cycle, it was giving me exactly what I was needing in that season. The burned out, tired, worn out season that I was in. And so when we can get down to that, and I would go here with how is this serving me? I want you to think of your needs. What is it giving you? And so go back to that episode and watch all about needs. Go to Nonviolent Communication, download their needs worksheet so you can understand the needs that are going on within you. And so you can understand what you're actually getting from victimizing yourself when it comes to your child's behaviors. The last question I want you to ask yourself is, how do I want to show up instead? I want this to be detailed. I want it to be specific. I don't want it to be hypothetical. I want you to think of yourself in that moment, and I want you to get very detailed with it. I want you to walk yourself through the experience that you want to have. So in my case, when I'm thinking about baby number 3, and I'm thinking about, okay, there's going to be a night where it's 2 a.m., baby doesn't go back to sleep. They're crying and crying and crying and crying for an hour or two. And I'm rounding that hour and a half mark. And I'm starting to notice the victimization story coming up in my head. I'm acknowledging my need, that I'm tired and that I'm needing to be loved and I'm needing to be cared for. I'm needing support. I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to remind myself that all I can do is regulate myself, calm myself down. And from there, it is my child's responsibility to then mimic my calm, to know that I feel safe within my body. If I feel safety within my body, my child is going to feel safety within theirs. And knowing that it's just going to take a little bit of time for them to calibrate and adjust to my new energy. So I'm not scared that they're going to keep going, which is my next point here. Telling myself that this is not going to last forever. The more calm I'm able to stay, the quicker we'll move through this. And this goes for any tantrum, bad behavior, back talk, older children, younger children, babies. This is not going to last forever. It's a short little season that might feel like a really long time when you're in it. But in the grand scheme of things, it's a really small amount of time. It will pass. You will get through it and you'll be stronger on the other side. But right now, in this very moment, knowing it's not going to last can sometimes just shift that mentality just a little bit. The last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to hold space for my child. I'm going to hold space for this baby. I'm going to slow myself down and I'm going to look this baby in the eyes. And I'm going to ask this baby, what do you need? What do you need? And obviously, this age, they're going to need a lot of guessing, educated guessing. But as your child gets older, you can actually physically ask them, what do you need? What's going on for you? And this will help to bring context for you as well. So these are the 3 questions that I would dive into. These are the 3 questions that I would journal through. I would be repeating and asking myself, or I did repeat and ask myself for months until I came to a conclusion of what was going on for me. I want you to hear that I am not saying that your feelings don't matter. I'm not saying that your needs don't matter. I'm not saying that what you are feeling is wrong. I'm not saying any of that when it comes to victimization. I'm not saying that even what you're doing, the victimizing part of things, that it's wrong. Because it's serving you. That's the thing, is it's helping you. It's giving you what you need to survive. It is meeting those basic needs. Go back to last episode, okay? These things are meeting your needs. But what I want to encourage you is that this is not the best way to get this. This is not the best way to give you what you are needing. Which for me, in my case, was affection, care, love, and support. Heard and seen. It was not the best way I could do that. So instead, I'm learning how to communicate that, to share that. So that way I can get my need met in the way that actually feels good. And I'm rewiring my brain in that way. So I hope that this episode was helpful. I know it was a heavy one, a lot of story, a lot of things to think through. But if you have any questions, as always, please comment them below. If you have a mom friend who is struggling with victimization and she's talking about it, she's saying, hey, gosh, I just so frustrated with myself. I would love for you to send her this episode. If you have not yet signed up for the Masterclass, you still have time to do that. Even if this episode has aired, it'll be free for you in the comments below. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But I am just so grateful that you were here today. And I hope that you have a good rest of your week. And I will see you in the next podcast episode.